This is the Channergy tutorial on how to take an order part 2. If you watched part 1, then you should be at the same place I am, or at least recall this order from our previous tutorial. And where we left off was taking a payment and we were done with the order. However, there's several things you can do in addition to what we saw in the previous tutorial. For example, you can type a message here. If you wanted to type something specifically to the customer, you can. In addition to that field, if you click the More button, there's several other fields. So here's the one we just typed. Here's another field, and you could type something else here. Now, depending on your company, these fields could be used for messages to the customer, or they could be used for internal use. So in this case, this is clearly a message to the customer. That could show up on the invoice, the packing list, on an email. This one, let's say, is internal. It would show up on a pick list or a work order. You can also have pre-built messages you select from the pull-down. So again, depending on how your company works, they'll control where these show up. By default, though, this one shows up on invoices and emails, and this one is for internal use. So if you haven't changed things, that's how it works. Orders can be keyed into the system. That's what we're talking about. They may also come from a third party like Amazon or eBay or your web store. If they do, they'll typically have a number here so that you have the order number that the customer saw when they ordered online. You can search for that order number. There's a find an order option over here. So if a customer calls or you need to search for an order by an order number, it will find that field. It's called alternate order 1. There's also a second one if your company uses it. This is typically an eBay search field. So all of those you can find orders on, but this is where you would typically search. If you're a sales rep and you get paid commission, you may have this preset so it automatically populates, or you could select it yourself. So maybe you're Joe keying an order, you want to make sure you get commission on that. Again, depends on how your company works. We can calculate commissions. You may or may not have the ability to select this field. You can prioritize orders. These are also set up by your company. So maybe this is a rush order, and if you select that, it'll move to the top of the queue. So if you have the authority to rush an order, that's where you would put that in. If your customer has terms with you, maybe you bill him or invoice him, you can select those here. Again, this can be preset at the customer level, so they're probably already populated, but if you need to select it, you can. You probably won't use order source, but if you need it, it's there. Select whatever's in the pull down. You can hold an order. If you do that, you typically will put a date on it. That would be the date this order would release. So maybe you're taking a PayPal payment or a pre-order and it needs time to clear. You can hold it. If you were limited on how big of an order you can put in, your manager can come in here and override that too. You wouldn't be able to do it without permissions, but you can see this field. There's 2 unlimited length messages. So if you sell gifts or if you use these fields, you can type as much as you want here. And again, based on how your company works, that could show up on a gift card or an email or an invoice or a packing list. There's also a shipping message that pushes out to the shipping software. So if the customer asks you to leave it on the back porch or warns you there's a bad dog in the yard, etc., you can type those instructions here, and those will push out to the shipping software so that UPS or FedEx or whoever you're working with will see those instructions. If you do installations or work orders, etc., you may have the option to select dates here. If you don't worry about it. This is a very specialized thing that most people don't use, including the install notes, which may be how you're going to install it or when you're going to do it. Ignore it if it's not relevant to you. When you're done, close this. Notice the order went on hold. I mentioned these notes earlier. That tells you the order is on hold. Other notes will tell you if it's on back order, that kind of thing. You do have the option of printing an invoice, which is great if you have a customer standing in front of you or if you need to print one out and have it filled. So just press the F10 key, or you can choose it from here, and that will print the default invoice. This could be prefabricated for your company, so it looks different. This is our default one. Once it opens, it may prompt you automatically to print if that's how your preferences are set up. If not, you can click this print icon and click OK to whatever printer you're sending it to. Another way, and you want to specify that it did print correctly, it'll keep track of that. Another way to notify the customer, again, this may be set up at your company, is when you're done with an order, you can click the Finish button. Clicking Finish does a couple of things. It will tag the order's finished, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's done. It's out of your queue. You'll see it still in your list, but as a green check mark telling you it's over. However, you can also attach things to the Finish button that your company may have done. That would typically be an email that goes to the customer and says, thank you for an order, it's in process, or whatever else an email may do. It also can run scripts, and scripts can do very specialized things. If that's the case, your company may have a script that runs for instance, calculates the shipping method like we did in the previous tutorial, but it's tied to that button. The real question is, ask your supervisor, do you need to click finished or not? Everything else would be automatic. So those are other things that you can do on an order. Sometimes orders need to be changed. So if you have products in the order that you want to delete or change a price or put in a discount, use this icon right here. That gives you various options. For instance, you can change the price or the discount here. So when I open that, here's the place where I would change the quantity. Here's where I can change the price. Here's where I can put in a discount. It may be pre-populated like this one is. Note you may not have access to this if security is set to turn it off, but if you do, this is how you would handle it. You can also use this to mark an item shipped. If you are somebody who's taking an order and packing it, you'd have the option to ship the order from here. If it's a back order and you want to fill it, you have that option as well. These are unlikely during order entry, but if your company does that, it's nice to have them and know that they're there. You can cancel an item. Customer says, I don't want it anymore. We'll mark it canceled. If it's in ship status, and you can see the status is here, committed, shipped, drop order, etc. And when you move over these cursors, normally you'll see it. I've got a menu open. But if it's in ship status, SH, you can return it if that's how your company does returns. You may also do RMAs, so check with your supervisor to see which way it works. But if you have the power to do returns, just returning it will create a return item for it, give you a negative balance here, and then you can go to the payment tab and it'll have a credit already there. Just click edit like we did when we were creating a payment before and approve it, and it'll put money back on the customer's card. You can cancel changes to an item, you can delete an item, you can force it to be back ordered. Unusual typically for folks taking orders to force a back order, but if a customer says, I don't want it, let's back order it, I might want it later, that's a possibility. In a minute I'll show you how to do quotes as well. You can also force commit a back ordered item. If this is in back ordered or BO status, force committing will force it to be committed. Typically, again, that's something your supervisor or manager will tell you to do if they know it's on the shelf and the system just isn't updated. We saw the view product details in the previous tutorial. It tells you all about the product, and drop shipping allows you to change this to be shipped from a drop shipper, which you may have the authority to do. There are other things that you can do in order entry, but these are the basics. One last comment. We talked about the finish button down below. You also have a come back later button. Customer wants to call you back, maybe they don't want to finish the order now, you can press this and it won't be marked as finished. That way you can call them or they can call you and complete an order. I also mentioned that you can make quotes. You can key an order just like we did, and the only thing you need to do to change it to a quote is come up to this order menu item and choose quote. Doing that will convert the order to a quote. I've already paid this one, so obviously it's an order, but a quote will convert to the word quote here and change these to back ordered status. And that's similar to come back later. You can mail that quote, you can email it, it could be tied to the finish button, so when you click that it will email out that quote to them. And then later if the customer wants to purchase it, you just go to the order, and you can use find an order or you can use find a customer, which we cover in another tutorial, to find this order, and then come up to order, choose order. It won't say quote here, it'll say order, and that will convert it to an order, and then you can fill those items. So that's it for the advanced tutorial on taking an order. We'll cover some other small details that you might want to change at order entry in the next tutorial.